Yesterday, I have one of my followers asking if emergency fund is an investment. Emergency fund is not an investment. Emergency fund is the money you put aside for your own protection. It can be in something with minimal returns or no returns at all. In other words, you can put your emergency fund into something that gives you no return. The purpose is for protection. Emergency fund is the money you put aside for easy access, or the money that you can easily have access to in case of any unforeseen circumstances such as medical bills, car repairs, loss of jobs, etc. It should be the money that you can easily have access to when you need money. When you want to start any kind of investment, stocks, bonds, real estate, treasury bill, etc., it is always advisable for you to have an emergency fund. Why? Because if, for instance, you are investing into stocks and the value of that stock that you invested into has depreciated, and unfortunately an emergency has happened to you, what that means is that you'll be forced to sell that stocks at low. So, for instance, you bought the stocks at 5 cedi, the price has gone down to 4 cedi, and unfortunately something has happened in your house that you'll have to provide funds immediately to solve that particular problem. What will happen is that you'll be forced to sell that particular stock at low. Why? Because you don't have any emergency fund. But if you have an emergency fund or you have some money somewhere that you are keeping in case of any emergency, you can easily tap into that and solve that problem. Or if you are doing any kind of investment, an emergency happens, if you have an emergency fund, you don't go and touch that investment. That is why it is always advisable for you to have an emergency fund before you start any kind of investment. And also understand that it is advisable to have 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses saved as your emergency fund. So if you are somebody that spends 3,000 Ghana cedis a month, for instance, at least you should have 9,000 Ghana cedis saved as your emergency fund before you start any kind of investment. The reason why everybody teaching investment is stressing on this is because it is very, very important when it comes to investments. If you don't have an emergency fund, it is very easy for you to break any kind of investment that you are doing because things happen. Emergency can come at any time, anything can happen, and it always requires money. And if you don't have emergency fund, you'll be forced to use whatever that you are using for investment to resolve any kind of problem. That is why it is always advisable for you to have an emergency fund before you start any kind of investment. I hope this is helpful. Don't forget to like and share, and have a good day.